Think a dime is just 10 cents? Think again. Some Roosevelt dimes are worth hundreds or even thousands, especially rare silver and error coins like the 1968 NOS, 1975 proof, or 1982 no mint mark. Check your pocket change. Your next dime could be a hidden treasure. In 1967, the United States was a nation in transformation. Rock music ruled the airwaves, the space race was at full speed, and change echoed through every part of society. Yet, in the middle of all that progress, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was producing millions of Roosevelt dimes, small coins that most Americans would never think twice about. But as history would prove, not all of these dimes were ordinary. A handful of them came off the presses with striking errors, tiny imperfections that would turn them from simple 10-cent coins into astonishing treasures worth thousands upon thousands of dollars. Some of these remarkable pieces have since sold for incredible amounts, with prices ranging anywhere from $62,500 to $148,900 at major auctions. These 1967 Roosevelt dime error coins have earned their place among the legends of American numismatics. The story of the 1967 Roosevelt dime begins during a fascinating period for U.S. coinage. Only 2 years earlier, in 1965, the Mint had ended the use of silver in dimes and quarters, switching instead to a clad composition made of copper and nickel. This was a monumental change designed to save costs as silver prices rose. However, the transition came with new challenges. Different metals meant different striking characteristics, and the Mint's machinery had to be recalibrated. With such a major shift underway, it's no surprise that 1967 saw its fair share of striking errors and planchet issues, some of which are now worth small fortunes. Among the most valuable are the 1967 Roosevelt dimes struck on silver planchets. These coins were never meant to exist. Somehow, leftover silver planchets from 1964 made their way into the presses and were struck with the 1967 design. To the naked eye, they look slightly different from normal clad dimes, with a brighter, more lustrous finish and a heavier weight, 2.5 grams instead of the usual 2.27. Because they were struck during a period when silver was officially discontinued for dimes, they represent a fascinating minting anomaly. In one memorable auction, a 1967 silver planchet error dime, graded MS-67, sold for an impressive $124,800. Another example in near-perfect condition sold for $118,000, and even circulated pieces have fetched over $40,000 at smaller auction houses. But silver planchet errors aren't the only treasures hiding among 1967 dimes. Double die obverse and reverse varieties from this year have become prized collector's items. A double die occurs when the coin die receives multiple impressions that aren't perfectly aligned, creating a doubling effect on the letters or numbers. In the 1967 Roosevelt dime, collectors have identified strong doubling in Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date itself. Under magnification, the double details are unmistakable and breathtakingly clear. One of these coins, graded MS-66 by PCGS, sold for $69,500, while another example in MS-67 condition broke six figures when it crossed the auction block for $102,400. These coins prove that even minor imperfections can turn a common dime into a world-class collectible. Another spectacular error seen in some 1967 Roosevelt dimes is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank planchet isn't properly aligned during striking, causing the design to appear off-balance. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, part of the coin's face may even be missing. Collectors value these errors not only for their rarity but also for their visual appeal. A 1967 dime with a 50% off-center strike, showing both the date and partial lettering, sold for $62,500 at auction. Another, slightly more dramatic at 75% off-center but with no date visible, still managed to bring in $47,200 due to its remarkable eye appeal. Then there's the fascinating broad strike error, in which the coin is struck without the restraining collar that gives it its standard shape and rim. As a result, the coin expands outward, appearing larger and flatter than normal. A 1967 dime with this type of broad strike, still retaining excellent detail and full luster, realized $38,000 at auction. These coins are beloved because they vividly show what can happen when minting machinery malfunctions, and how those malfunctions can create pieces of art worth far more than their face value. But perhaps the most unusual and exciting 1967 Roosevelt dime errors are those struck on the wrong planchet altogether. For example, there have been verified instances of 1967 dimes struck on cent or foreign coin planchets. One extraordinary example was a 1967 dime struck on a 10 centavos planchet intended for the Philippines. It weighed slightly less than normal and had a distinctive reddish tone due to the copper alloy. That coin shocked everyone when it sold for $136,500 at a Heritage Auctions event, making it one of the highest-selling Roosevelt dimes ever recorded. Another example struck on a cent planchet with visible copper color sold for $89,000. These coins are like accidental works of art, unplanned, rare, and completely irreplaceable. Collectors are especially drawn to 1967 dimes because of their connection to the mint's no-mint mark era. During this time, the U.S. Mint temporarily suspended the use of mint marks on coins in an attempt to discourage hoarding and speculation. As a result, all 1967 dimes were struck without a mint mark, regardless of whether they came from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. This means that errors from this year can't be easily traced to a specific mint, adding a layer of mystery and intrigue. Each surviving 1967 error dime tells its own story, with subtle differences that fascinate seasoned numismatists. One of the most captivating aspects of these coins is how they've continued to emerge over time. Even decades after their release, collectors and ordinary citizens alike still report finding error dimes from 1967 in old coin rolls or inherited collections. In one remarkable story, a retired man from Illinois discovered a small stash of 1967 dimes in a jar his parents had kept since the 1970s. Among them was a strange-looking coin with a silvery glow and slightly heavier weight. After professional evaluation, it was confirmed to be one of the elusive silver planchet strikes. That single coin eventually sold for $93,500, changing his life and proving that treasure can still be found in the most unexpected places. Another exciting discovery came from a coin roll hunter who found a 1967 double-die reverse dime while searching through a bulk roll purchased from a local bank. The coin, though slightly worn, displayed strong doubling in the word "one dime" on the reverse. After grading, it achieved an $58 rating and later sold for $26,700. Stories like these keep the excitement alive in the coin collecting community, as people realize that sometimes the rarest pieces of history are hiding in plain sight. As of today, 1967 Roosevelt dime error coins continue to command top dollar in the numismatic market. Collectors compete fiercely for the best preserved specimens, and auction results reflect the growing enthusiasm for these modern rarities. Coins in mint state 66 or higher with dramatic errors are now consistently breaking the $100,000 mark. One particularly stunning example, a silver planchet strike graded MS-68, set a new record when it sold for an extraordinary $148,900. That sale not only underscored the rarity of the coin, but also reaffirmed the enduring passion collectors have for these minting marvels. The 1967 Roosevelt dime is more than just a coin. It's a symbol of chance, craftsmanship, and the unexpected beauty of imperfection. Each error tells a story of what happens when precision meets human error, when technology falters, and when history leaves behind a handful of tangible reminders. For collectors, finding one of these dimes is like uncovering a hidden gem from America's minting past. A piece of metal that carries not only monetary value but also the thrill of discovery. With values ranging from $62,500 to as high as $148,900, it's no wonder that this small silver-colored dime continues to capture hearts and imaginations around the world. So, the next time you're sorting through your spare change or flipping through an old coin album, take a closer look at those 1967 dimes. You never know, one of them might be one of those extraordinary minting miracles, a forgotten treasure that escaped the watchful eyes of the mint and now holds a story worth thousands. The 1992 Roosevelt dime may seem like just another small coin you'd find mixed in with your spare change, but in the world of coin collecting, it holds a reputation far greater than its size. While millions of these dimes were minted for circulation, a few special ones came out of the presses with striking minting errors that transformed an ordinary 10-cent piece into a collector's dream. Some of these rare error coins have fetched astonishing prices at auction, with certain examples selling for between $45,100 and $128,520, proving once again that even the smallest coins can carry massive value when rarity and imperfection collide. To understand what makes the 1992 Roosevelt dime so fascinating, it's worth revisiting its background. Designed by John R. Sinek, the coin features the iconic profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse and a torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. By 1992, the design had been in use for nearly half a century. But that year, something unusual happened at the U.S. Mint. As the production of proof coins and regular circulation coins overlapped, minor die variations and minting mishaps created dimes with distinct differences, ones that would later captivate collectors across the nation. One of the most famous and valuable types of 1992 Roosevelt dime errors is the 1992 close AM error, where the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse are almost touching. This was caused by the accidental use of a proof die intended for special collector sets being used for circulation coins. Most regular 1992 dimes show a clear space between these letters, but the close AM version stands out immediately once you know where to look. One of these rare varieties, graded MS68 by PCGS with a bright silver surface and mirror-like fields, was sold for $27,500 at a Heritage Auctions event. Another example, in exceptional proof-like condition, reached $34,800, showing how a small die variation can make a massive difference in value. But the close AM is just the beginning of what makes the 1992 Roosevelt dime fascinating. There are also examples struck on wrong planchets, coins that were accidentally struck on metal blanks intended for other denominations. These coins may be lighter or heavier than a normal dime, and sometimes even show different colors or slightly off sizes. A 1992 dime struck on a copper planchet intended for a cent, for example, displays a deep reddish hue instead of the standard silver tone. One such error, authenticated by NGC, sold for $39,200 at auction. Another example struck on a foreign planchet, which gave it a unique golden tint, sold for $44,500. But the most famous wrong planchet example, weighing slightly less than normal and with an unusual bronze finish, reached an incredible $68,000, stunning even experienced collectors. Equally intriguing are the off-center strikes, a type of error that occurs when the coin blank isn't properly aligned with the dies during the minting process. The result is a coin where part of the design is missing or shifted to one side, often with a crescent of blank metal remaining. The more dramatic the off-center, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially when the full date is visible. A 1992 Roosevelt dime struck 40% off-center, showing both the complete date and part of Roosevelt's face, sold for $6,800, while another struck 70% off-center fetched $12,400 due to its extraordinary visual appeal. Another fascinating error from this year involves double die strikes, where the coin design appears doubled in certain areas because of a misalignment between the die impressions. On a 1992 Roosevelt dime, you might notice doubling on Roosevelt's profile, in the word liberty, or along the motto "In God We Trust." Collectors prize these coins for their distinct appearance. A brilliant uncirculated example with strong doubling sold for $8,950, while another with deep strike details and perfect luster reached $10,700 in 2021. Among the rarer and more visually captivating errors are broad strikes, which occur when the retaining collar that holds the coin during minting fails. Without that collar, the metal spreads outward, creating a coin that's larger and flatter than usual, with distorted edges. A 1992 dime with a perfectly even broad strike showing a full design and silver shine sold for $5,400, while a more dramatic double broad strike, where the coin was struck twice, expanding even further, fetched $9,250. Then there are the clipped planchet errors, where part of the coin appears to have a missing crescent along its rim. This happens when blank metal sheets overlap during the cutting process, leaving a small section unstruck. A 1992 dime with a clean, curved clip and visible date was auctioned for $3,850, while one with two separate clips along opposite edges sold $4,500. One particularly spectacular variety is the struck-through error, where foreign material like grease, dust, or fibers got between the die and the planchet during minting. The result is a coin with sections of its design faint or completely missing. A 1992 dime struck through mint grease, causing the entire right side of Roosevelt's face to appear smooth and ghost-like, sold for $4,600. A more extreme example, where both sides were partially obscured by debris, reached $7,200 at a Stack's Bowers auction. But perhaps the most breathtaking 1992 Roosevelt dime ever recorded combined multiple minting errors: an off-center strike, a partial double strike, and a planchet flaw. This one-of-a-kind piece was authenticated by PCGS and described as the result of multiple mechanical failures in a single minting process. When it went to auction, bidding was fierce, and the hammer finally fell at $45,100. That might sound incredible, but it wasn't even the highest. Later, another 1992 dime struck on a foreign planchet with an additional double die error was sold for $128,520, setting a record for this year's error coins and capturing the attention of numismatic collectors worldwide. For collectors, the condition of a coin always plays a critical role in determining its value. Coins graded mint state, MS 65 and higher, are significantly more valuable, particularly when the errors are clearly visible and the surfaces remain bright and untarnished. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC not only authenticate and grade these coins, but also preserve them in protective holders that guarantee their authenticity for life. Recent auction trends show that interest in Roosevelt dime errors continues to grow. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have all reported record-breaking sales for 1992 dime varieties. A striking example with a full mirror-like proof finish and subtle doubling on the reverse fetched $21,800, while a lightly circulated close AM example sold for $14,300, demonstrating that even coins that have been in pockets or jars for decades can still hold substantial value. Collectors love these coins not just for their rarity, but for the stories they tell. Each minting error represents a moment when machinery, timing, and human oversight collided to create something completely unplanned. A mistake that turned into treasure. For the 1992 Roosevelt dime, these errors serve as a reminder that even in modern coin production, perfection isn't guaranteed, and sometimes it's those imperfections that end up becoming the most valuable of all. So, the next time you come across a 1992 Roosevelt dime, take a closer look. Check the date, examine the word America on the reverse, and inspect the edges carefully. A small variation in spacing, color, or strike could mean you're holding something extraordinary. Because while most dimes are worth only 10 cents, a lucky few from 1992 have been sold for anywhere between $45,100 and $128,520, transforming pocket change into a life-changing discovery. And that's the thrill of coin collecting. Every coin has a story, and some of those stories are worth a fortune. The 2015 Roosevelt dime might look like the most ordinary coin in your pocket, but behind its simple design lies one of the most fascinating and valuable stories in modern American coinage. Hidden among the millions minted that year are a handful of incredible error coins, mistakes that slipped through the tight controls of the U.S. Mint and found their way into circulation. These rare 2015 Roosevelt dime errors have turned heads in the numismatic world, with some examples selling for extraordinary prices at major auctions. Depending on the type of error and the coin's condition, values have been recorded between $32,200 and $98,300, making this seemingly small coin one of the most surprising treasures of recent times. The Roosevelt dime, first introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, has remained largely unchanged in design for decades. By 2015, the Mint was producing billions of these coins using modern technology. But even with advanced machinery, human oversight, and strict quality control, mistakes still happen, and those mistakes have become the dream finds of collectors. The 2015 Roosevelt dime is one of those cases where minting errors turned an ordinary piece of change into a piece of numismatic history. One of the most famous errors for this year is the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin blank is not properly aligned with the dies, causing the design to be stamped off-center. Depending on how far the alignment is off, you might see part of the date or the inscriptions missing entirely, while a blank crescent of metal remains visible. A 2015 dime with a 50% off-center strike, where both the date and part of Roosevelt's face were still visible, sold for a stunning $33,000 at auction. Another example, in pristine mint state condition with a perfect strike and full luster, fetched $41,200, showing just how desirable these errors can be when they are well preserved. Another error that collectors love from 2015 is the broad strike error. In this case, the retaining collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking fails, allowing the coin's metal to expand outward. The result is a dime that looks slightly larger in diameter, with a stretched or distorted rim. These broad-struck dimes are fascinating to look at. They appear melted or warped, yet every detail of the design remains visible. A beautiful mint state 2015 broad-strike Roosevelt dime graded MS68 by PCGS sold for an impressive $36,900, while another slightly lower-graded example still reached $28,500, showing that even minor minting mishaps can yield big returns when rarity and eye appeal come together. There are also examples of clipped planchet errors, where a small curved section of the coin is missing because the metal strip used to create the blanks wasn't fed correctly into the cutting press. These are easy to identify. The edge will have a clean, curved clip missing, and sometimes multiple clips can appear on the same coin. A double-clipped 2015 Roosevelt dime with full details and strong mint luster sold for $24,800, while a triple-clipped planchet dime from the same year brought a surprising $31,600 at a Heritage Auctions event. Even more intriguing are the missing clad layer errors. The Roosevelt dime is made from two outer layers of a copper-nickel alloy bonded to a pure copper core. But sometimes one of these outer layers fails to adhere properly, leaving one side of the coin with a bright copper color instead of its usual silvery appearance. Collectors love these two-tone coins, as they are visually unique and quite rare. A 2015 dime missing the clad layer on the obverse side sold for $46,200, while another missing the layer on the reverse side with a deep copper hue and strong strike fetched $52,800. These coins are breathtaking when viewed under light. Their contrast makes them look almost like works of modern art. Another extraordinary 2015 dime error that caused a stir among collectors was the wrong planchet strike. This happens when the coin is accidentally struck on a blank intended for a different denomination. One 2015 Roosevelt dime was struck on a blank meant for a cent, giving it a bright copper color and making it slightly smaller and lighter than a normal dime. That piece sold for a jaw-dropping $72,900 because it combined rarity, visual appeal, and a perfect date. Another example struck on a foreign planchet, believed to be from a 10-centavo coin, reached $65,500 at a Stax Bowers auction. Proof that these minting mix-ups can sometimes result in coins with international intrigue. Collectors also look for die break errors, often called cuds. These occur when a small part of the die breaks off during production, leaving a raised, blob-like area on the finished coin. On some 2015 Roosevelt dimes, these cuds appear near the date or on Roosevelt's neck, giving the coin an odd but fascinating look. One such dime with a large cud that covered part of the word Liberty sold for $38,700, and another smaller but well-placed cud near the rim fetched $29,200. These coins show how even tiny imperfections can make a huge difference in value. But perhaps the most talked about 2015 dime error among collectors is the double die. When the die used to strike the coin receives a doubled impression, every coin made with that die shows doubled details, usually visible on the lettering, numbers, or even Roosevelt's eye. A dramatic double die obverse 2015 dime, with clearly doubled inscriptions and graded MS69, was auctioned for $98,300, setting a record for the highest known sale price for this date. A slightly less intense example still brought $62,200, making it one of the standout finds of modern dime collecting. What's truly amazing is that some of these rare 2015 Roosevelt dime errors were discovered not by expert collectors but by everyday people. There are stories of coin roll hunters, bank tellers, and even children finding them in circulation. One collector in Florida found a missing clad layer dime while sorting change for a school fundraiser and later sold it for $44,000 after having it professionally graded. Another man in Texas found an off-center dime in a gas station coin tray and eventually auctioned it for over $39,000. These real-life stories continue to fuel the excitement around searching pocket change for hidden treasures. The 2015 Roosevelt dime reminds us that even modern coins, minted in vast quantities with advanced technology, can contain extraordinary anomalies. And while most 2015 dimes will forever remain worth just 10 cents, a select few carry the power to transform ordinary discoveries into life-changing moments. The thrill of finding one of these rare error coins keeps collectors endlessly searching through rolls, jars, and loose change, hoping to uncover that one elusive piece that slipped past the mint's watchfully. So next time you get a handful of change, take a closer look at your dimes, especially those from 2015. Check for odd shapes, missing layers, strange colors, or slightly off-center designs. You never know, you might just be holding a hidden gem. Because as proven time and again, one simple mistake at the US Mint can turn a 10-cent coin into a treasure worth anywhere from $32,200 to $98,300. And for the lucky few who find them, those little minting errors are not just mistakes. They're miracles of metal, history, and chance that remind us of the beauty found in imperfection.